Just think of it as the rough draft of the podcast world. This is the Newbie Writers Podcast with your hosts, Damien and Catherine Bramkamp.
Hey, this is episode 183, and we're actually doing a show this week. I apologize, we've missed 2 weeks because I've been sick. It sucks. But what can you do? I thought, I'll be here today.
Good, I'm glad you're here, and I'm here, and it's just been, we've been back and forth in the summertime for us and the wintertime for you, so you're in the 6th season, and I'm in the season where I go away. Yeah,
but it was strange. We had 20 degrees of weather and sunshine the other day, and everyone went, ooh, this is different.
Yeah, that is different.
Anyway.
Welcome to climate change.
Don't get me started.
I won't get you started, because we have a guest.
We do, and we don't want to offend her even more. So I'm going to try and pronounce her name because she has a very strange name, and Catherine does this to me occasionally. It's like our tortured sentences.
Yeah.
We've got Lise. I'm going to say it how my brain wants to say it, and it's Lise Quintana. I think that's close enough.
Great. I think that my parents would actually recognize that, so that's wonderful.
There
well,
you
it's
go.
not like I said Lisa Smith, and you're like, who? Anyway, welcome. For those that are curious now how your name is actually really pronounced, can you enlighten us?
Lise Quintana.
Right, there you go. I wasn't that far off.
No, you weren't bad.
Anyway.
You always do actually a very good job with the names of our guests, so I give you a definite shout out for that.
Yeah, heaven help us if you were doing it.
That's right. I'm terrible at it.
At least it'd be, I don't know, Joan... I was going to say Joan Rivers, but that's not fair.
No. But I'm the one.
Hello?
I'm the one who should not speak any foreign languages ever because I always get it wrong, even in Mexican restaurants. And I live in California, so yeah, we don't trust me. We're going to go with you.
So when you go to restaurants like that, do you try and put on a bit of an accent when you're ordering? I don't know why people do that.
I get it really wrong, and so instead of ordering Las Camarones, I'll order the Cadillacs. I'll order the I'll order all sorts of bad things, and my husband will just look at me, say, "Okay, you just stay there, point to what you want. I will get it for you. Thank you very much."
Yeah, I don't know why people feel the need to do that.
No, I don't try to. I do not do that. I'm much better in English. I just smile and say, "You don't even want to hear me maul your native language."
It's great
just
here. You can sit and you can watch people do it, and the waiter will come over and say, would you like something to drink? I'm like, yeah, mate, I have a beer, and I'll also have the fettuccine. What? Or I have the taco. So, hang on, you can just say taco. It doesn't matter. I think the 18-year-old Australian in front of you
is not unduly impressed.
No. Anyway, we're not here to talk about food. We're here to talk about this thing called, and I'm going to pronounce this wrong too, that I want to say Lithomobilus.
And you said it exactly right.
Yes, cool. I need a ding sound. I need to find it. Anyway, so what's this about? Because I was reading through it and I asked Catherine some questions. She's like, I don't know. Let's have Lise on and we can try and work it out. So it's an app, from what I gather.
It is an app.
And what does it do?
So, it's an e-reader app, except that most e-reader apps, you have a book, and you open the book, and you read it just like a normal paper book. It looks like a paper book. It behaves like a paper book. You swipe your finger from right to left across the page to turn the page. And it's a very faithful representation of a paper book. But that just means that you can tell one linear story like you can in a paper book.
Right.
And what I wanted to do was to be able to tell lots of stories at the same time and be able to skip around them in a way that was more sort of reader-driven. So, if you are reading George R.R. Martin's Game of Thrones, now the way that those books are written, each chapter is from a different character's point of view. So if there's one character that you like better than other characters, like everyone loves Tyrion, if you only want to see Tyrion, like you couldn't care less about what Cersei Lannister is up to, whatever. You just want to follow Tyrion and what he's doing. you can just follow his storyline, or you can just follow Daenerys' storyline. You know, however you, the reader, want to follow it. Maybe you just want to see everything going on in King's Landing. You know, all of the comings and goings. You can look at that.
So how do you do that, though? Do you just punch in a keyword like Frodo?
It really is done by the author does a lot of tagging on the back end. So you are presented with, here's a choice of characters that you can be following. Here's a choice of places in this text that you could be looking at. And the way that we have built this, it's very flexible. So, you know, not every author, if you write, say, nonfiction texts, you don't have characters and places. You maybe have themes, or, you know, you can, it's flexible so that authors can do lots of different things with it.
Right. So then, but how does that work for new books, though? Or is this something that would be more applicable to something you've already read?
So really, it was written because I personally had a book that I was working on that had a lot of characters in a lot of places around a fictional world, and I loved my characters, and I wanted to be telling their stories even when they weren't necessarily the main focus of the action. Like when this character is over here in, you know, New York doing something, there are people in London doing stuff too. And you know, what if the reader is more interested in the London people than the New York people? They should be able to stay in London and watch that.
Are you then presented with a whole stack of words that you can select that are tagged in the book? So you can then, instead of, I don't know, I think of Catherine's books, you know, they're about time travel. Would a little panel come out and say time travel, gold rush, girls, whatever, I don't know, religion, and could I untick, I don't know, time travel, and then I just get presented with one page?
Not really like that. It's more like, you know, let's say you have a history of World War II, and you say, really, I'm only interested in everything that happened in the Pacific Theater of Action. And what you'll get is, you know, every chapter of this book, every thread that has to do with things happening in the Pacific. But if you say, really, I want to see what Neville Chamberlain did, you know, all the things that he did from beginning to end, wherever he went. Or I just want to see all the things that happened on November 3rd, 1939. Right. So you'd be able to select on those narrow criteria that have already been tagged in the book.
I see. I'm just trying to get my head around it. If I was to pick up a book, if I was to, well, you know, with ebooks, you know, you open up. The idea is, I guess, to read it. I mean, the author has set out that you read it from page 1 to 200, or, you know, start to finish. Is that a bit unfair on the author, or is this something that they have to do, obviously, and nominate and say, yeah, I'm happy for people to jump around within my book and miss bits that I may have written?
Well, you know, it depends on the author. There are some authors that are already writing this way. If you read, like, Stephen King's The Stand, it is written from a whole bunch of point of views that all sort of converge around the ultimate finale of the book, when they all come together in one place, and there's the big stand. I wrote a piece specifically for Lithomobilus. You can download it for free. It's called The Strangely Brown Episode, and it's a simple story about a dinner party, and it's told from the point of view of 4 people who go to a dinner party, and as you read it, it's in 4 scenes, and each scene is told from the point of view of each character. So this is a total of 16 scenes, or the same little story written 4 times. And the reader can go through and read the same scene from the point of view of 4 different characters, or they can read, you know, all of one character from beginning to end. But however they choose to read it, you know, having the availability of these extra points of view, of these extra scenes within the story, just adds to the richness of the story. And I think that really that's what the key for me is, that the more information that you add, the more points of view you add, the more the more rich and the more vivid that world becomes.
All right. So can you add, because you're saying from the back end, the author has to, add these tags in. If you get feedback from the readers or that's what people that download them, can you add more and more as time goes on? So someone might say, you know what, I was really interested in that goblin that had half a chapter. Can you put that tag in? I want to follow that story or something like that. Can you do that? Or is it just a once-off, we think this is the main chunks of the story, we'll tag them out?
Well, that's the other beauty of our platform, is that nothing is ever finished. You can conceivably continue to add to it and continue to tinker with it forever, so that authors who have, like Hugh Howey has a really good rapport with his audience. George R. R. Martin actually has a very close relationship with his audience. And as they listen to their audiences who say, hey, I really want to see more of this character, or I really want to know about what's going on in this section of your world, they can then write those things and add them in where they're appropriate.
Interesting. Well, I think on one level, though, you're going to destroy reviews on Amazon. You're going to have someone go, oh, the book was a bit lightweight. I only read it from one point of view. So, well, if you read the whole...
Now, how is this? So let me ask, I'll be the devil's advocate on this. How is doing this? Let's start with the search as opposed to the additional information. So, like, I read War and Peace, and I wasn't as interested in war as I was in peace. So I skimmed war. I mean, I just went through and made sure, all the main characters were still alive. But, all of the lengthy, laboriously described battle scenes, I just, went right over. How is this new system better than that? I should add, that's what I'm curious about, because I'll go through and skim for what I'm looking for now in a traditional book. So how do you feel like this is different or better?
So there are a couple of things. First of all, it's kind of unfair to talk about how it would work with already existing texts, because existing authors didn't write for this system, and so they can't really, they can't continue that conversation. One of the things as an author we talk about writing as a conversation with the reader. When you write, you want to make sure that you don't use too much detail or you're not so explicit when you talk about things. Like when you talk about somebody in a house and they're going from one room to another, you don't say, he got up out of the chair, he walked across the room, he put his hand on the knob, he turned the knob. You just say, he went from the living room into the kitchen. And the reader gets to fill in their mind how he got there. So I like to think of this as giving the reader a bigger part in that conversation. And so, maybe the reader doesn't want him to go into the kitchen. Maybe the reader wants him to go into the bathroom. So the reader is going to follow him into the bathroom and, watch him blow his nose and wash his hands. And, okay. So that's, I feel like that is the next natural evolution for literature, because the people that really love this are gamers. And gamers are already used to that sort of control over the story and the ability to direct it where they want it to go.
It is very much like that, because a lot of games, being especially multiplayer online stuff, where you get what they call quests. You're sent on a quest here, but then it ties into another thing. So I'm very much used to that, being a gamer as well. Yeah,
you are.
And you can
and I'm not. So that's what's interesting. That's what's interesting to me. So you're creating or mimicking in literature what a whole generation has already expected out of their entertainment.
Right, out of their first-person shooter. So this is essentially, it's being able to write a first-person shooter with actual plot and where nobody gets shot.
Yeah. That is now. Thank you. That metaphor I can get my head around. So, because I was like, I was not understanding. Now, is this different? For a while, and you might all be too young to remember this. There was a series of books for it was the middle grade definitely, I think most specifically middle grade, and it was choose your own adventure.
Oh, I'd love Choose Your Own Adventure.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so it sounds like we're along that lines. Would that be accurate, or is it a little different?
Sort of. It is a little different in that Choose Your Own Adventure. Think about in Choose Your Own Adventure, you have one starting point, and you can only really go linearly.
Okay.
Whereas with Lithomobilus, imagine if you had 5 starting points, and they could sort of weave in and out of each other. There are scenes that more than one starting point could share. There are places where it can branch off, and only one starting point will lead to this group of scenes. You have a lot more options with Lithomobilus than you would with a simple branching Choose Your Own Adventure.
And I don't know, have you ever read Choose Your Own Adventure from cover to cover without doing the numbers at the bottom?
Oh, heck yeah, and they're ridiculous.
Yeah, I know.
Because Choose Your Own Adventure, the thing that made me crazy when I was a kid was when you read it the way it's intended, they're so short.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Yeah, I noticed that too, that it's like, well, no, wait a minute. If you go from, page 16 to jump to page 30, jump to page 65, you're done.
Right.
Although that could have been the appeal. I mean, I don't know if they may have been targeted to high interest, low. What is the word they used? It was high interest, low ability readers. So a fast book would have been just perfect.
I don't know.
Maybe, and that's possible. But as somebody who had a huge interest in reading as a kid. I read for a book report all of the collected works of Arthur Conan Doyle in like 5th grade.
You sound like you could have been my friend. Yes.
I was an amazing dork in 5th grade. and let's go ahead and say in all of elementary school, huge dork. And so they were very unsatisfying to me. I thought that they were really childish. On the other hand, I know lots of people who love them. And certainly Lithomobilus makes that possible, but it also makes much bigger, more involved things possible.
Yeah.
So here's an overarching question. Why? What was the reasoning behind starting doing this and creating an app, going through that headache?
So part of it was I had this story that I wanted to write, but I realized that there is no intuitive way to display it to people. When I started out, I've been a hardware and software tech writer in my professional life, so my mind tends to be very orderly and very list-driven. And so when I started writing this very big, detailed book, I used a spreadsheet. And I had my list of characters down one axis, and I had the timeline across the top axis, and then I would use colors to denote where on my planet they were, and I had a special way of naming the files so that I knew what order they came in. And I would show it to other people, and to me, it looked very intuitive. Like, I knew how you negotiate through this story. And I would show it to people, and they would treat it like Jeopardy. I'll take Bob for 200. No.
What a cool idea, actually.
Take Bob for 200.
Could you imagine opening a book, and it's like, okay, which character do you wish to be? And you push a little button, it's like, okay, you've selected Bob. Your story's over by the first chapter because he actually died. He was a bit part. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Back to the start.
I bet we could do that in Lithomobilus. I bet we could hook that up.
Well, there you go. I've given you an idea now. Get to work.
There you go. Well, that's one of the greatest things I've found about as we've continued development and continued talking to people, I know that they have really grasped the concept when they say, you know what you could do with this? You should do, and then they give me their own use case and a problem that they want to solve, a possibility that they see, and that's, to me, the most inspiring thing. The thing that I'm looking forward to is somebody using it in a way that I cannot currently anticipate.
Was it hard to get it onto the iStore? like iTunes, like
so-
iPads and that sort of thing? Because they have a fairly rigorous, you know, tick certain boxes, don't you, for their apps?
Yes and no. You know, the actual sort of paperworky part is, I don't want to say hard, it's tedious. It's a pain in the neck. You know, there is a lot of tick this box and you have to do it on a Thursday during a full moon and, you know, that kind of, we did sacrifice at least one goat.
Good. They really need that for Amazon.
Yeah, they do. They do. The much harder thing has been making sure that all of the moving parts work the way I envision them working. And that's the part that's actually hard, because we're doing stuff that nobody has done yet. We're doing, you know, this is all brand new stuff. And so when I say, okay, guys, have you made it do this? And they go, I don't know that we can. Okay, we're going to go and solve that problem.
So did you have to hire software developers to come up with the app for you?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. You know, we have a lovely team. Our head of engineering has worked for Netflix, NASA, LinkedIn, and Apple.
Cool.
And
Cool.
yeah, and he specializes in this kind of software development. And so he heads a team, and there are other Apple developers working on our team. But you know, we've got a really smart bunch of guys who are doing all of this development, sort of with making sure that it's going to scale and that everyone's going to be able to use it at the same time, and that it's going to be the experience that we want it to be.
Because I hear that, yeah, it's pretty hard, or you got to make sure your app is pretty rock solid, and yet I then see my boy playing on the iPhone, and he's flicking a coin into the back of some plumber's crack, and I think, how does that even get through?
No, it's not. That's the sad thing. It's not about the quality of the content. It's about the playability. Like, it doesn't matter that he's flicking coins into a plumber's butt crack. It matters that he can consistently flick those coins and without the app crashing. That's all Apple talks about.
Yes. Well, is it available on Android devices?
Not yet. Well, so there's a reason why a lot of companies come out for Apple first, and that is Apple has a very small number of screen sizes. And when you know, as you're doing development, you have to keep in mind what size the screen is, so where things are going to be in relation to each other, and it's easier to kind of experiment with a small number of screen sizes available for Apple devices versus the near infinite number of screen sizes available on Android devices.
We sort of moved towards doing Android, and even Microsoft. A lot of them now, like I said, I went to Windows 10. It's all very app-driven. That'd be kind of interesting to be able to have Lithomobilus up on one screen on my PC, so while I'm working, whatever, you can have something on the other screen and read. Do it that way.
Sure. And I recognize that at least when we started in 2012, 70% of the U.S. market was all iOS devices, so iPad and iPhone. Whereas in the rest of the world, it was 70% Android.
Yes.
So I do recognize that right now our development is kind of on the U.S.-centric side. You know, on the other hand, that was the low-hanging fruit. So we're hitting that first. And then, you know, trust me, we will be making the conversion to Android as soon as we feel like we've gotten it rock solid enough to release to 7 billion people.
Yeah. Well, it'd be good.
Because we will be going to every single corner of the globe and making sure everyone has it.
Hey, look, like I said, if you can get it onto the Microsoft Store and then the Google Play Store, you'd be set, I think.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, because at the moment, you know, Samsung is the flavour of the year with their screens. Everyone's got them. I know I moved from Apple to them, and I've been pretty happy. So, you know, if Samsung wishes to give me another phone, look, they're more than welcome.
Just out of the goodness of their heart.
Oh, yeah.
Well, if we have this different approach, and you know, this nonlinear or reader choice, you know, approach, what do you see this? How do you see this affecting how writers write? You know, are we looking at all of that extra material that we jettisoned originally because it was, we digressed, or you don't need to know all that about the character in favor of the action. Is that all going to come back into play then?
There are lots of possibilities. As you say, there's all this stuff that writers amass in the process of writing a novel. Things like
Yes.
character sketches and all of their notes, especially if you're writing something that takes place in a specific place, and so you've gone to that place
Yeah.
and you've taken all sorts of notes and made sketches of the locals and their huts and their weird hair.
And that was just San Francisco.
I was thinking Phoenix, much the same. And all that stuff can then be folded back into the book and monetized, which is really what publishers are looking for. Publishers want to know, that's great, but how do I get paid for this? Because people love, for the books that they love, they want to see how the author envisioned that character looking. What did they wear? What did their face look like? Those things are fascinating to hardcore fans. And so I have a lot of value. Also, you have shared worlds. This is really more popular in science fiction than in other kinds of fiction, but you start out with a venue, a planet, a fictional land, and lots of different writers will write stories that take place in that area. And you have these anthologies that all take place in the same area, but with stories by different writers. So that kind of collaboration is possible. Another possibility is there are a series of books that are essentially franchises. Like, I'm pretty sure the Sweet Valley High series, which is a preteen series.
Yeah.
Those books are written by, a bunch of newer to the scene writers who are paid, not a whole lot to crank these formulaic books out.
Right.
And so the ability to have a whole bunch of people writing in the same franchise is possible. So there are models that already exist that are made more possible and easier. And there are models that are not yet as popular, so one of the things we do, I run a press, Zoetic Press, and we use the Lithomobilus platform to publish our stuff. We take old stuff that's out of copyright, and we run it alongside solicited works from all kinds of writers. So we've done Grimm's fairy tales, and we'll print, Red Riding Hood, and then lots of newer interpretations of Red Riding Hood, or poetry around Red Riding Hood. And those tend to work very well because it is interesting to see exactly where some of this stuff comes from. What are the historical influences? What does that text actually say?
So like
and how have people interpret it? Say again?
So it's like a big annotated
Exactly.
document.
Sort of.
You could do it to the Bible. Anyway.
Yeah.
Ooh.
That's been done.
It's been
And
done.
here's Charlton Heston. Click. This is how Moses let everybody out.
Yeah, that's what we want. Oh. Skip to the end.
Yeah, skip to the end.
Oh my God.
When it just all goes to hell, so to speak.
Yeah, I think how does then one, if there's a newbie writer sitting there listening to this who thinks, this might actually be a cool idea. I've got my story, my book almost done. I might go back and sort of focus on a few other characters. How do they then become a part of Lithomobilus and Zoetic Press?
So the first thing they could do is if you have a manuscript, or if you have an idea for a manuscript, you can always submit to Zoetic Press. If you go to zoeticpress.com, we have a submissions page, and we have open submissions. Anyone can submit to us. You don't need to query through an agent. Right now, we're looking to license this technology to other presses. If you are an author who already has a press that you work with, but we have a couple of authors whose presses don't quite have the ability to match these authors' visions. You know, one of them is an author who has a play and some essays and a nonfiction book and wants to put these out a little at a time, you know, linking these things together and create this giant story arc that will take place over years and years of accreting things, morphing his persona from the person that wrote these nonfiction books to this sort of fictional persona that does all this other cool stuff.
Mm. Do you
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, do you have, you know, certain bare minimum requirements, though, for stories to be able to make Lithomobilus more, I don't know, adaptable, more enjoyable? Like, if someone wants to submit a story that's got one character in it, you know, well, hang on. It's too linear. We can't. You need to add more into it so you can have all benefits of this app.
Okay, I'm searching my brain for an example of a story with a single character that has compelling conflict in it.
Yes. Hey, I'm coming from
Only
the...
This is a failure of my imagination.
That's what I'm trying to get at, though. I mean, you know, a lot of newbies.
Well, it could be like, all right, so for Future Run, a book I'm working on right now, which is the third in a book series. Part of what inspired Future Run was a long narrative poem that I've written and published. So conceivably, within the Lithomobilus system, I could connect that third book to the poem to kind of say, oh, look, this is where this is all coming from, and it would all be of a piece. Would that be correct?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And people have asked me, how do you start? You know, how do you start creating these big nonlinear texts? And I say the easiest thing to do is take your story, whatever your main story is, whatever the thing you're starting off from, and pick not your main character's best friend, not the other person who is in all the scenes and shares all the action. Pick a side character. Pick a servant. Pick, you know, somebody, pick a parent. Pick somebody who isn't in every scene that you don't see much of, because those people are, so to speak, off camera a lot of the time, and they're doing something else. They're having their own adventure. And invest some of those secondary characters with life. And when you take those secondary characters, write out their stories, and sort of stitch them back into the story. So there will be places in your main story where that character shows up over and over again. And by filling in that time and showing their point of view on those mutual scenes, the story becomes bigger and richer and more interesting.
Where do you draw the line, though? Like epic fantasy, you're talking 100,000 words. And if then someone starts to pick a side character and fluff that out, then that's going to be... It's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger.
And that's the point.
You say that like it's a bad thing.
Sounds like a lot of work.
Absolutely, it's a lot of work. On the other hand, think about when George R.R. Martin started writing the Game of Thrones series, the Song of Ice and Fire series. He got the first 4 books done, and then the 5th book came out, and it was essentially like half a book. It only had half the characters, and it was still like really huge. And he wrote an apology at the end of it saying, I'm sorry, but this ended up being way bigger than I expected, and rather than not put out a book, I decided to break it into 2, so I'll have a new book for you soon. And fans were incensed. They were really upset and felt cheated. When people love a story, love a world, love a set of characters, they cannot get enough of it. So for fans, this is huge. This is what people want. People who love books just want more book.
See, that letter of his was his undoing. He's just sort of said, I'm sorry that there's not as many characters in this because they all died in between the last one.
Because I keep offing them.
Yeah, that's all he had to put. And people are like, oh, okay, cool. You've killed everyone else, so you may as well just do it in the downtime. And he could put, they died in enjoyable way. Ways that didn't need to be written, like they died of a cold.
Well, that's not very exciting. Isn't there supposed to be more blood involved in a Game of Thrones?
King died of cancer. It didn't, you don't write about that. How boring would that be? Brace yourselves, winter is coming, we're getting the flu.
Like, you don't want to go here.
Right.
Anyway. Yes. All right, so how many people so far are part of Zoetic Press and Lithomobilus?
In terms of the workforce, so Zoetic Press is its own separate thing, and we've got myself and Ali Marini, my managing editor, who is a fairly prolific poet in her own right. She's got something like 5 chapbooks of poetry coming out between now and the middle of next year.
Okay.
And then we have a revolving stable of readers, because small independent presses, they all know each other, and we all sort of share beta readers and sort of sub-editors. So there are probably 4 or 5 of them. And then in terms of who's working on Lithomobilus, we have 3 engineers and myself, and then a couple of people who work on the non-engineering side of things. So we're still very small, very startup-y. We've got people in California, we've got people in New York, we've got 1 person in New Hampshire.
Did you then approach certain people that you knew and you said, look, I've got this idea for an app, for a new platform, and did they sort of give you that, what? Or were they like, that sounds like a strange idea, I am going to jump feet first into that?
So what actually happened was, here in Santa Cruz, we have an event called Tech Raising. And at Tech Raising, it's a weekend-long event. People with an idea for something get up on Friday evening and they pitch their idea to a crowd made up of software developers, business advisors, venture capitalists, so a fairly large crowd of people. You get up, you pitch your idea, and then there is sort of a mixer afterwards, and you get out and you know, people who have questions about your idea can come up and ask you about it, and if you can, you get a team of people together that want to work on a demo. And then you have the weekend to work on a demo, and at the end of the weekend on Sunday afternoon, those people who got a team together present their demo to this panel of VCs who give them feedback. So I got up on a Friday night. Now, one thing that you have to know about me is I am the least social person in the world.
Oh, you're in good company
given
then.
the choice between, say, leaving my house for any reason, or going ahead and putting out the fire myself,
It can burn, in my opinion.
I really, and it's not that I don't like people, it's not that I feel socially awkward, I just would always rather be hanging out by myself. So to get up in front of a crowd of people is hard enough, but to get up in front of a crowd of people with this thing that I am obsessed with and that I would love more than anything, I'm telling people my fondest wish in life. So the risk is they're all going to go, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, and I'm going to be crushed, and I'm going to go home, and I'm going to drink bleach. But instead, I said, okay, here's what I want to do. And I told them the story of the inspiration for this, which happened in 2009 when I went to go see an exhibit about Genghis Khan. And the cool thing about this exhibit was it was at the Tech Museum, which is a big, sprawling building, and the exhibit itself took up 4 huge rooms. And at the entrance to this exhibit, there was a poster that said, pick one of these 6 characters. And there's a farmer and a businessman and a woman and a soldier and a couple of others that I never remember. And then it said, as you go through the exhibit, there are these touch screens. They're like, large iPads. And they have icons for these 6 characters. And you can touch them and see how the reforms instituted in Genghis Khan's life affected different strata of society. And looking at that, I thought, that poster outside doesn't know what I picked. I could, at any touch screen, I could pick one. I could pick all of them. I could pick a different set each time. I get to decide what I picked. So when you multiply out on each 6-item touchscreen, from 0 choices to choosing all 6, there's 64 different combinations.
Wow.
And so if you multiply that 64 combinations by 6 touchscreens, 64 times 64 times 64 times 64 times 64, it's 63.5 billion with a B, billion combinations.
Wow.
And when you think about, gosh, what if I could do that with narrative? What if I could do that with story? How cool is that?
Do you have to take a packed lunch?
You have to pack a lunch, exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you're willing to pay a lot more than 99 cents on Amazon for it, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
But so I get in front of people and I say, this is what I want to do. I want to unpack narrative. I want to reinvent how people think about literature. I want to make it bigger and better and more interesting, and I want somebody to help me. And then I gave my pitch, and I'm almost crying by the end of it, and then I ran off and hid in a corner. And I was so thrilled when a couple of engineers came up and said, we love this idea. We want to work on this.
Really? How cool.
And when I asked them later, what was it that intrigued you? They said, A, it was not social media anything.
Yeah.
There was a decided lack of Twitter in your sentence.
Yes.
That's good.
Right. It was not an iteration of something that already existed.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not trying to make a new social media something. I'm not trying to make a new Netflix, or, you know, I'm not reinventing something. And it was a social good. You know, this is not a porn bot or anything that is exploiting people's weaknesses. This is an actual great thing for people. And so those 3 things made it a compelling project for them to work on. And sure enough, in a weekend, they knocked together, and it bears very little resemblance to the product that we now have. But it was enough to give people an idea of what it could be. And that was the important thing.
So they coded a very sort of loose idea of the app in a weekend.
Right. You know, it was
Far out.
absolutely demoware. So there was no back end to it. You know, we put in Hamlet, and I think that might have been it, just to give people an idea of what it would do.
That's insane. So then what happens then? Do the 3 of you or 4 of you, however many got together, do then investors say, right, we'll invest money in you guys to get this up and running, and then, hey, away you go?
No, actually, I paid a third-party developer to do the first iteration of it. And then I started getting guys together on my own. And I am lucky, hugely lucky, in that I have been able to fund a lot of the development myself.
Okay.
But that ain't going to happen much longer. So, you know, we're at the point where we're going to be looking for investment.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're going to are you going to do like a crowdsourcing for this? Or are you going to just get like definite investors who will then have a piece of you? How are you going to approach
I think
that?
it's going to be definite investors. I don't see so few crowdsourcing projects make their funding goals. And I don't feel like that's the way to go, especially since what we're putting out is not like a product that you can touch. You know, when it's an app, you know, I feel like most of the real successful crowdfunding campaigns are around physical products that are going to production, and so people get a product at the end of it.
And usually a cheaper version.
I think you're right. My husband's company did a very successful crowdsourcing funding that went way beyond their expectations because they had a physical product to give. And I think you're right. That made all of the difference.
But it's also that people see that product and think, well, if I give a little bit now, I get that product rather than paying the full retail of what it will be of $90.
Exactly it. Yeah. So I think you're right, Lise. There's a lot to that.
Right. And I've donated to several crowdsourcing things, and for me it's not even about I could get this product cheaper than I would be able to get it otherwise. For me, it's more about, if I donate to this person's effort, I get this cool premium that is actually useful to me.
See, but in your case, though, I can see that. I mean, what would your pitch be to crowdfunding? You know,
Exactly.
hey, give us some money, and then you can choose the way you read your book.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think it really works somehow.
Nope.
Nope.
Yeah, I would think that's interesting. So do you have a launch date?
So
Or you have like a
currently,
goal? It's like we're going to have 13 products out or 2 products out or.
well, currently, the reader is already available. It's in the iTunes store. If you look for Lithomobilus, you can find us. And there's stuff available on Lithomobilus. Non-binary review is available for free. We're just about to bring out our 6th issue.
Okay.
And so people can check it out and see what is possible. And really, I feel like there's this cycle. People want authors that they love. Readers want to read authors that they love. But in order to get those authors to write in this way, their publishers have to support the platform. And in order to get their publishers to support the platform, readers have to download it. So
Okay.
we have to chip into that cycle and get people excited about the possibility. And I know I've gone to so many conferences of writers where the time is right for this. People are looking for ways to write nonlinear literature that is intuitive to navigate and engaging for the reader, and fun. There was hypertext in the mid 80s to early 90s, and that fizzled out because it required technology that a lot of people just weren't ready for yet.
Yeah.
I think that we're there now.
Oh, all right.
So
Very cool.
if people are listening and want to check it out, make sure you leave a review on the iTunes store. There's not many on the Australian one. Well, there's none. No, but that's the thing that sucks. I think the Australian iTunes store is very different. So it doesn't really show. I noticed, I think when we started this show, because we're on iTunes for the podcast, that, we had a few ratings there, but we didn't really have any on the Australian one. Then it started to filter through. It's just crap. So yes, if you're in Australia, download it, review it, rate it. Do that.
Yes.
Lithomobilus.
Unless you think it sucks, in which case, thanks, you don't have to say anything.
Yeah, exactly. Just be quiet. Absolutely. That's a good rule.
Yes, but at least they would have downloaded it.
If you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all.
That would be yes.
Well, then why have I done 183 shows? I'd like to think I have more nice things to say. Actually, no, I'm not getting down this path.
Don't. Let's not do that.
Oh, my God. All right.
All right.
Now, is there anything else you want to cover before we start doing the odd silly thing, like tortured sentences?
No. I think. Do we think we covered what you're all about, Lise? I appreciate you coming on and talking about this really interesting new thing.
Cool.
Thank you for giving me a chance to talk about it. This was great.
Absolutely. I like the new and different. Even though, as Jamie says, it sounds like so much more work.
I know. That was a good impression of me too.
For writers, absolutely, it's so much more work. But for readers, when being able to read, like going through fiction that you love, like potato chips, just more and more and more. That is a fabulous gift. And I feel like for writers, if you're not excited about writing, then maybe knit.
Maybe not for you.
Watch concrete dry. I think though, if you're going to go and look at this, I'm talking to sort of the newbie writer here, you have to start with it. Does that make sense? You have to think, okay, well, I want to be a part of Lithomobilus. I want to be able to write all these different angles to it. I don't think if you've already got something that's nearly finished, you don't want to look back and go, oh, okay, we'll go back to the start and I'll pick a side character and I'll start writing on that.
Right.
I think that's where it would be a bit daunting.
Well, I think though, for most of us, we have full character development notes, and we've got characters off either doing something or, I write a backstory about a character and it's like, okay, here's his family and here's, why he's, this way. And this is where you would, I have one character where his mother was part of something else. And I never put that in the book. And so in this format, that would be a side chapter. So you'd get more insight into what I had started writing as a very, kind of unsympathetic character. And the more you'd learn about the character, the more you'd say, oh, well, maybe he's got a reason for being so much of a jerk. So I think if you kept that in mind, then you would just, continually save all that side information and just have it ready.
Sure, and not everyone's a novelist. If you write short stories and you really love this short story, I wrote a short story about a couple who essentially disappears into the ether. And she is an artist who draws what other people are feeling, and he is an artist who uses equations to draw where people have come from and where they are going to. And the mother of the girl can now only see them through the static on her TV screen.
Oh, wow.
And the story sort of, ends when she accepts that her daughter is never coming back. And everyone who read that story said, well, you have to write more of that. We want to know where they went. We want to know what they're doing. Yeah. So, it's possible, even if what you do is short stories, for you to, every short story has another short story that can come out of it.
And I think with Catherine's time travel world, like I said this to you only recently, so you could do an offshoot and write about the Order or the Mothers or whatever they were, I can't remember now. And you can then talk about I don't want to try and give too much away, the Dranit family. You could follow that path for a while and find out how they got to their power and, that sort of thing. You can break it all off into this whole thing. So get on that.
I will. I'll work on that. I also got a better name than Time Cult. Did I tell you that?
I hope so. Just so Lisa's up to speed, it's beta read, not beta read, but I beta read Catherine's book, and the group that she's got in there, she called the Time Cult, and I said, whoa, that's rubbish.
It's stupid, I think, was another verb.
Oh yeah, that might have been another describing word that I used.
I have on my wall right now a calendar that is nothing but covers from pulp science fiction books of the 50s and 60s, and that really belongs right up there. You need a scantily clad woman looking horrified and a drawing of a rubber suit monster. That's what that name deserves.
Yes.
Yeah, some sort of blobby monster.
Exactly.
Now, I've totally forgotten what I've called it, but I'm going to look it up. I'll tell you even off when we're done. I'll tell you what I called it. Time Cult. I got a better name.
My justification was, think of someone that is looking to join a group, and they think, oh, there's the Knights Templar, there's the Illuminati, there's these things that sound, and then there's the Time Cult. Yeah, I'm going to sign up to that, because cult's not a bad word.
Yeah.
Well, that's all right. I'm glad you changed it. All right.
I did.
Lisa, where can people find you out on the internet? Social media?
They can find me on Facebook, Lise Quintana. They can find Zoetic Press at zoeticpress.com. They can find Lithomobilus at lithomobilus.com. And they can check out our blog, Rhizomatic Ideas.
Right. Cool. That's it? No Twitter, no Google+. Oh, actually, you slammed Google+ before. I'm not talking to you now.
Well, I can tell them what my handle is on Ello. How would that be?
Ha!
Oh. I'm not on that. That sounds horrendous.
Well, Liz, you're welcome to hang around while we do our tortured sentences at all, or you can take off and start your Friday evening.
I am going to take off and start my Friday evening, but thank you so much for having me. This was
fabulous.
For being
here. Good. Right. We try our best.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, let's do a tortured sentence.
Okay.
Oh, that's right. We got to
play the. You must play the opening because it's so appropriate.
All right. Next time, don't put the wrong faces on the right slab. Tortured sentences. All right. Where did you grab this from?
This was on a manuscript that I was asked to read, and I just works on so many levels as a tortured sentence. Go ahead and read it. I changed some of it up because I didn't want to identify the writer.
Okay.
But just go ahead and read it.
I haven't actually read this before, sometimes during an interview I might scroll through the notes. I haven't actually done that this time. So this is copyright protected. Do not copy or rewrite any ideas or words written in this novel. I wrote this as a spin-off to the movie X, whatever.
Yeah.
There is dialogue and events in here that I took right out of the movie, but there are many that I made up. No infringement or plagiarism. Right. That's as bad as when people post up, music videos on YouTube and put, "I do not own this."
But I'm going to exploit it anyway.
Yeah.
This was, first of all, the first piece was the copyright protected, which is, again, in the U.S., if you write something on a napkin, it's copyright protected. So to say it's copyright protected is a sign of amateurism. So if you want to be cool, you just say, here's a doc of my file, have at it, because I've got the original, and if it came down to it, I would, it would, be, you would be in the right. I would be in the right.
Yes, but even if it did, if for whatever reason you ran off and published it as your own works, and they challenged it, all they'd have to do is print out that email that they sent to you, and it's got a timestamp on it.
Yeah. It's so. No. Now, this is what I really love: is do not copy or rewrite any ideas or words written in this novel.
Well, we're in breach of copyright now because we've got a document in front of me with words.
So, whatever you do, this author owns the I words.
Well,
So I love that. And then right after it, the author's writing the work as a spin-off to movie X, and has lifted, his or herself has lifted dialogue and events straight from the movie into this new piece of work, and then telling the person reading it that now don't plagiarize, because apparently I have that covered.
Yeah.
So it just was so fabulous when I read it that I thought, I must share. I'm sorry, I must share. I think that fan fiction is great. It's a great way to start out writing. Sometimes it's a great way to make $1 bazillion if you did it with 50 Shades of Grey. But you don't need to be that assertive and that abrasive about it. You just say, hey, this is fan fiction. It's based on movie X or based on book Y, and if you love it, then yay team, right?
Yeah.
So I just don't think you have to be all over it. I think just write what you're going to write. If it filters through your consciousness, it will be original just by dint of that. But FYI, don't lift entire dialogues out of movies, because screenwriters are protected.
Yeah, but
in a big way.
Even if you're doing a fan fiction thing, you don't typically just rip stuff out of the thing that you're a fan of, do you?
No, you don't.
I thought the idea with fan fiction is you write often around that universe. So your character might be someone that we've never heard of before, but they're on board the Enterprise. Or
right.
They
were
sort of
working
thing.
in the kitchen or whatever, right?
Yeah, and they come across Captain Picard. Yes, I don't think you go, right, well, I'm going to be the main character. I'm going to be Darth Vader in this. And, yeah, you don't do it like that, I don't think.
Yeah, so it was worthy of a tortured sentence.
What do you do, though? Okay, I know it's just the tortured sentence. I don't want to get too involved with it, but what do you do in this situation when this comes across your desk and they're like, well, I need you to edit this. I want you to have a look at it. And then there's this disclaimer going, look, I ripped off a heap of this. What do you do? Do you have to go and... have you gone to watch the movie now? Do you have the manuscript in front of you and go, oh, my God, page 3, 4, 5. You can't put that in there. You've ripped it off.
Since I wasn't... so this wasn't necessarily a client. And so I wasn't being paid. I would have started them at the very beginning. I would have said, okay... you're going to need to go through, and I wouldn't do it, I'd have them do it. I says, you need to go through, take all of the dialogue that you drop verbatim into the work, take it out, rephrase it, summarize it, find another way of talking about it so that it's original to you and not a direct.
But the problem is that destroys the whole story
of
then.
the movie.
That would destroy the whole story then, wouldn't it? Because if you've taken something direct, it means you've got those characters interacting in your story. And if you have to take them out, you can't really change what they're saying, because then that is awkward as well. Because someone will say, well, hang on.
And you need to rethink, I think you need to rethink the whole project, which is not news that any new author wants to hear. You just need to rethink it. And then and as you said, then you need to be, Genghis Khan's handmaiden and talk about him from a whole different perspective. You need to be in the kitchen of the Enterprise and look at that from the whole new perspective. You can run into famous people. Historical novelists do it all the time. But it's so risky to pull from another source like that and say, well, here's the exact dialogue because I want to be precise, so I'm just going to take it. That and rewriting your well-known historical situations.
I would just be saying, don't try and ride the coattails of someone else that's worked hard. Anyway.
Yeah.
Still
So anyway, that was very interesting. It was so startling that I was like, oh, I have to share this.
Well, I think I'll take it out of my manuscript now.
I think you should.
Word of the week. This came from A Word a Day with Anu Garg. And this is a cool word. I like it, actually.
Yeah, I thought it was cool, too.
It's probably it sounds like a name that should be in like Game of Thrones. Tellurian. I think that's how you pronounce it. Tellurian. Relating to or inhabiting Earth. An inhabitant of the Earth. Right. So Tellurians versus aliens, that's what you need. That'd be a good app. What an app.
You could have a whole race called the Tellurians, and that would be absolutely perfect.
So then if aliens invaded, wiped out the human race, would they become Tellurians because they've inhabited the Earth?
No, they would be illegal immigrants, wouldn't they?
Right. I'm not getting down that road.
Which is big. Suddenly a whole interesting science fiction option opened up. I thought, oh, that would be good. But we thought, Men in Black. I mean, we already have the illegal alien kind of idea.
Yeah, let's just thinly veil racism with aliens. Now.
And they often are in those films. So.
All right. Let's do a prompt.
Okay, so as for me, as insane as it seems, for us in the U.S., it's back to school this week. Lots of schools have come back to week in August. I think you should go back to school at the end of Labor Day, after Labor Day. But I'm old-fashioned that way. So, what is your best back to school memory?
Right.
And what is your worst back to school memory? How do you celebrate back to school when you are no longer in school?
Well, because a lot of my work is very intensive during school holidays.
Yeah.
I celebrate back to school by not starting so early.
I bet.
And actually having a normal day. I think it was the last time school went back, we ended up cleaning out our storage unit going, oh, thank God, we've got a free day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
That's true because you're slamming on the holidays. You have an opposite.
Yes.
Kind of an opposite schedule almost.
It is. It's very much from now because school holidays start in about a month, I think. So we're now getting to that point where we're busy, but then schools are saying, "Oh, we can hold off for another 3-4 weeks, and then we'll book you in." It's like, yeah, that's fine.
So at least you have a little bit of time to clean out your storage facilities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, best back to school memory. I would have to say for me, I went to an all boys college up until year 11, and that's when this amazing thing called girls arrived. So rocking up to school, first day of school, year 11, it was like, you get RSI in the neck. So yes, that would have to be it for me. I know. What about for you?
I remember first grade. First grade was awesome, and I walked in and we got our own desk. And you got back in those days, you got school supplies. We had actual tax money for education back in the day. So we got you got brand new school supplies, and the smell of the back then when they didn't copy things, they had mimeograph machines, and so there was a distinct smell to mimeographed pieces of paper that had the purple ink, and you did various worksheets. And I loved my teacher. I loved learning how to read. I was so excited to be in school. I was a total nerd when it comes to that. And I loved the first days of school. High school, not so much, but when I was in the grammar school years, it was pretty exciting.
I was the opposite. I hated it. I was the big crier. I was the big teary boy.
Oh, were you?
Oh, yeah, right up until God knows when. Probably high school. I don't know. I can't remember. I don't know.
Oh, no, kindergarten, I walked in, turned to my mother and said, you can go now. I was like, I was gone.
Wow. No.
Yeah, I think sometimes girls actually have an easier time than boys.
Probably. And my boy's exactly like I was. He's my Velcro boy. Had to peel him off, like, I'm going to go to work.
Yeah.
So, yeah. No, I hated school. And going back even after school holidays and that sort of thing, it was terrible. But it was only until then, halfway through sort of high school, I started to get more, it was just like, oh, yeah, here I am. And it was fine. So it's weird. I don't know.
Yeah, and it's a strong, the reason that I thought of the prompt is that it's such strong memories because there's transition. You're going from summer and home, holidays and home to, quote, back to school. So it's this very, today I am home and tomorrow I'm in school. So, we really, I think when we have very conscious, different transitions like that from, it's clearly A and now it's B, that we have stronger memories of that.
Well, I was in an awkward situation where a school contracted me to change a projector over only last week, and they said, here it is, go into this person's room, and a big alarm bell went off in my head. And I said, it's not. I made some inquiries, and it turns out the lady, the teacher in there was my Year 5 teacher 22 years ago. Yeah. And I went, oh, this is weird. Unfortunately, she had a day off that day, so there was a relief teacher. And I was saying to Darren at work, oh, look, this is bizarre. I'm in this teacher's classroom, and she was my teacher.
Huh.
And I couldn't help myself. I went, I need to find, like, the school photo. Where's the... And I looked at the class photo, and she hasn't aged a day.
Oh, she's got a portrait in the attic, right?
Yeah, that'd be it. No, it was the 2015 class photo, and she was standing there. And I looked and went, okay, now this is even more spooky. It hasn't changed at all.
Isn't that funny?
That's bizarre. And I think, oh, what would people think if they saw me like 20 years later going, well, you didn't age all that well? Yeah, I don't know. It's strange now that I am working in schools and I come across people that have taught me or been in year levels around me. It's very weird. You can't escape it. And yeah, I hated being at school up until high school.
That's funny.
It's weird.
That might be, that's your karma. You have to go back.
Yeah. Bloody karma. Anyway. Oh, we forgot to ask Lisa, then anyone you want to give a shout out to?
Yep.
Oh, I've got, I like your notes. Give a shout out. 2 weeks and this is what I get. I'd like to give a shout out to antibiotics. Hasn't done anything. Still feel average. That's all right. I've got a good voice for it.
Give a shout out for getting my cast off finally.
Yes. Well, that's good. At least you can backhand Andrew now.
Yeah, now Andrew's safe, so I'm not going to bash him around with a heavy cast out of fiberglass.
Yes. Well, I do have one fear that if I go down the road of having my throat and voice looked at by a professional, that there could be, a show after a while that I sound like this, and I don't want to do that.
I hope not. I like your voice the way it is.
Yeah, well, so do I. Just feel rubbish. Anyway, at least we're back. At least we did a show. That's the main thing.
We are back, and next week you're going to talk to Michael J. Sullivan.
Cool. Are you not?
I'm going to be on a houseboat and completely out of range.
That's, for those who are curious, that's code for I'm going to be legless on a houseboat.
I'm going to be, I don't know what I'm going to do there. It's going to be camping, which is weird for me because I'm not a camping person, but I'm willing to give this a try.
This is going to be the last time you're ever going to go camping.
Probably.
Yeah.
But I'm with good friends. And my son is a fan of Michael J. Sullivan, has his books, reports that Sullivan is very good with his fans, talks to them a lot.
All
He's
right.
got his stamp of approval.
Well, he can send in a couple of questions if he likes.
Okay, I will tell him that.
Do that, and if he wants to be as bold, he can actually record a question. That'd be all right. Hello.
That I doubt.
Oh, come on. He has to sit down at your house for 2 minutes and ask 2 questions. It's all right. Anyway.
Well, we'll see. So that's what we'll do. But we've got somebody set up for you next week.
Excellent. All right, so stay tuned for that. That's going to be cool. Yes. Until next week. We'll see you then.
Well, next week.
Your book starts here on the Newbie Writers Podcast.